This is Melbourne, Australia. The Metropolitan Transportation Committee's findings on the transport problems facing the traveller in Melbourne in the future are contained in these 3 volumes. Volume 1, the survey data culled from a wide section of the community. Volume 2, parking in the central business district. Volume 3, the Transportation Plan, a blueprint for Melbourne, 1985. The report highlights the urgent need for planning and action. Here are the main recommendations. Improvements to public transport, trams, trains and buses. Replacement of out-of-date rolling stock, trams and trains. Improvement to stations, like this modal interchange station for trains, buses, taxis and private cars. Additions to Melbourne's existing rail network. The building of 3 new lines, from the city to Doncaster, from Huntingdale to Ferntree Gully, and from Frankston to Dandenong, as well as several express tracks on existing suburban lines. But most important of all, the building of the underground rail loop, the vital step in upgrading the whole of the suburban rail network. For the benefit of motorists and transport drivers, and to cater for the 1.5 million vehicles expected on our roads by 1985, the construction of more than 300 miles of freeways, like the Tullamarine Freeway. The elimination of many level crossings in the metropolitan area, by the building of overpasses, as at Somerville Road, Footscray. Six o'clock on a Melbourne morning. Peaceful, isn't it? The first trams and trains have been on the job for an hour or more. But as yet, the roads are quiet. Listen very intently, though, and you'll hear the sounds of the armies preparing for battle. These are the advance guards. But by 8 o'clock, the daily struggle has begun.
It's getting worse all the time. A few years back I could leave home at 7:45 and be early at the office. Nowadays I'm late if I leave at 7:30.
And the parking's becoming impossible. Tomorrow I'll go back to the train.
Well, something will have to be done about it, that's for sure.
A fair comment. And something is being done. Melbourne, like every big city in the world, is afflicted by growing traffic congestion. Notice those swollen traffic arteries? Their loads growing heavier all the time, as is inevitable with a rapidly increasing affluent population. Every year, thousands of new cars pour onto Melbourne's roads. And every year, too, there are tens of thousands more people to buy and drive them. Between 1950 and 1964, Melbourne's population increased by 50%. The number of cars trebled, and the usage of public transport declined by 1/5. Despite this decrease, though, Victorians still used public transport far more than people in many other affluent societies. But Melbourne's big problem is, it keeps on growing. It's estimated that by 1985, Melbourne's population will grow from 2.25 million now to nearly 3.75 million. The built-up area will nearly double in size, and there'll be nearly 3 times the number of motor vehicles. This growth is unprecedented, and it's going to call for planning on a greater scale than ever before. The Melbourne Master Plan of 1954 was the first attempt to take an overall look at Melbourne's traffic problems. The biggest change in recent years has been in travel habits of most people, an increasing number who wish to use their own cars. The Victorian government formed the Metropolitan Transportation Committee, comprising heads of all planning and transportation authorities in 1964, to investigate and report on the transport needs of the community in the future. The Metropolitan Transportation Committee employed consultants to carry out these surveys. The survey takers realized that in our homes, our work, our travel, we tend to follow definite, repetitive patterns. For most, we follow the same route to work, meeting the same traffic problems, and dropping the children off to school. Twice a week, the lady of the house goes to the city. She drives along the same route to the railway parking lot. Boards the same train. Catches the same tram into the city. On the map, these daily trips would look something like this. The husband, the wife, alone, their journeys don't add up to much. But remember, in 1985, these predictable movements will be multiplied by millions. The interviewers discovered much. In 1964, almost half of Melbourne's employed population was driving or being driven to work. The major survey on travel involved interviews with about 28,000 householders. Others interviewed included nearly 200,000 persons on public transport trips, 7,833 commercial vehicle drivers, and 43,000 road users who crossed the 1964 external cordon, 550 taxi drivers. While inventories of all public transport rolling stock and traffic volumes, speeds attainable, and widths of all arterial roads were also considered. This information was translated into a number code, then transferred onto punched cards, over 1.5 million of them weighing some 13 tons. This data was fed into the computer, which transferred the information onto magnetic tape for fast analysis. Electronic computers like this one can grasp and analyze information far more quickly than any human brain, no matter how brilliant. So this computer was set to work to analyze present and predict future travel habits. And here's the type of material the computer dealt with. These are typical of the travel routes preferred by people questioned in 1964. And these greatly thickened lines represent their estimated travel desires for 1985. Now, thanks in part to the computer, the planners had a fair idea what the transport needs would be. Special formulae were developed to estimate the volume of traffic in 1985. How and by what method people will be traveling in 1985. The information was analyzed and discussed and subjected to searching scrutiny and criticism. The aim? To discover the most efficient ways of moving Melbourne's population about. The survey findings came as no surprise to members of the Metropolitan Transportation Committee. They all know that Melbourne has a good public transport network, and many features lacking in other cities. The road system needs to be vastly improved to cope with the increasing volume of traffic. The traffic demands in 1985 necessitate improvements to all public transport systems, trams, trains, and buses. The Tramways Board operates 300 miles of bus services and about 200 miles of tram routes. They run mainly into and through the city and provide travel between the city and the highly populated suburbs within 6 to 8 miles of the central business area. By 1985, the tram bus networks will be handling more than 1 million person trips a day, an increase of 23%. Vehicle trips will lengthen, and passenger miles covered each day will rise by nearly 50% on 1964 figures. However, the committee agrees that if trams are to operate effectively and efficiently, they can only do so in their own right of way, as they do now in the reconstruction of St Kilda Junction. Unit for unit, trams have a 50% greater passenger capacity than buses. See what happens at the Melbourne Cricket Ground during the football season. The street public transport system is designed to form a grid pattern over the whole metropolitan area. The most important role of the railways in the metropolitan area is to handle peak hour commuter traffic. Privately owned bus services and Tramways Board buses will operate in the outer suburbs. Most will ply generally on feeder routes to railway stations and operate from modal interchange stations. The most important role of the railways in the metropolitan area is to handle peak hour commuter traffic. In 1964, 2/3 of the total passengers carried by rail travelled during peak hours. Predictions show that by 1985, the system will be carrying 663,000 passengers a day. Already congestion at Flinders Street Station has reached its peak. The committee, concerned at this situation, has strongly advocated the building of an underground loop to handle the expected increase in passenger traffic and the 180-odd trains required to handle commuters in 1985. This is how an underground loop will operate. People will emerge from stations situated around the perimeter of the central business district. The loop, with its multi-station terminal, will not only overcome the train congestion, but will allow passengers to reach their destination much quicker. And these are the new trains which will be operating on the Metropolitan network. The present suburban rail network serves 18 separate routes. The railways will build 3 new lines, as shown in red, from the city to Doncaster, from Huntingdale to Ferntree Gully, and from Frankston to Dandenong. Developments in these areas, Dandenong for instance, warrant new rail services to cater for the increased traffic expected in 1985. In addition to catering for people living in the densely populated suburbs, special attention must also be given to the needs of the many thousands of students attending universities, like Monash. To assist the integration of public transport, the plan provides for nearly 25,000 car parking spaces at rail termini and stations by 1985. Modal interchange facilities like these will be built at major suburban stations. Bus feeder services will operate around the suburbs and become a vital part of the balanced transport system for Melbourne in 1985. Elimination of 80 railroad level crossings by overpasses like this one at Clifton Hill or Somerville Road, Footscray. But the biggest problem facing the Metropolitan Transportation Committee is the movement of motor traffic, now attempting to share the suburban roads with trams and buses, with the consequent slowing down of both. By 1985, there will be 1.5 million motor vehicles on the roads in the metropolitan area, nearly 3 times the 1964 total. At the same time, the average distance each travels will rise by 50%. The distance traveled by private cars alone in 1985 will reach 37 million vehicle miles a day. Freeways provide the key to ready movement of traffic through big cities. Here's how they operate. Take a hospital, for example. Imagine all the wards, laboratories, operating theatres, kitchens, etc. in direct communication with each other. What confusion would result? Even the tea trolley would go through the operating theatre. But apply the simple principle of corridors, and the traffic begins to sort itself out at once. Wards and other rooms where movement is supremely important are separated. The wards might be called environmental areas. They only have to deal with traffic which belongs to them. These parts of the hospital are actually linked together by subsidiary corridors. It is the main corridors which take the longer movements between the principal departments of the building. Exactly the same principle applies to traffic in towns. There must be areas of good environment, where people can go about their daily lives in reasonable freedom from traffic. And there must be a complementary network of roads, the corridors of the town, for effecting the same unobstructed distribution of traffic to the individual environmental areas, and at the same time providing for major movement between the main districts. The Metropolitan Transportation Committee recommended the construction of 307 miles of freeways and the widening of several existing arterial roads. Freeways allow freer movement, with fewer accidents and better and faster services. Here is the plan for the Eastern Freeway. A divided highway with a rapid transit railway and reserved right-of-way in the middle, like the Eisenhower Expressway and rapid transit rail network in Chicago. Of the 45 million vehicle miles per day forecast in the design area in 1985, the freeways are expected to carry 51%, arterial roads 38%, and local roads the remaining 11%. So it is good business to build better roads, with projects like the Tullamarine Freeway, St Kilda Junction, and the Southeastern Freeway. Included in the roads plan is the elimination of about 80 level crossings. At the same time, the committee plans to cooperate with municipal councils and road authorities in the development of the local road system. Parking, too, has been recognized as extremely important. 55,000 all-purpose spaces will be provided. And so, with a revitalized public transport system, modern trains, trams in their own right-of-way, and modern buses carrying more people comfortably and safely wherever they wish to go, the committee believes more people will travel on these services in the future. Volume 3 is the blueprint for action. The recommendations of the Metropolitan Transportation Committee have been accepted in principle by the government. Some of the recommended works are already being built. Others will follow. As the chairman of the committee, the Honourable Vernon Wilcox says, if a capital city has an efficient transport system, this efficiency will not only benefit the area served by the capital city, but will automatically bring substantial benefits to the whole area concerned. In our case, both Victoria and Australia. A lead has been given. We also need acceptance of the lead by the community, which has taken the trouble to understand what is involved and is prepared to act.